Watching 5 now, how their criminal empire hit the jackpot when the twins were in prison in the Krays. Their empire behind bars.
Jailed for life in 1969 for murder, Ron and Reg Kray spent their time behind bars financing a lifestyle of luxury and favour. By the mid-1980s, the world outside had changed, and many of their original money-making activities began to dwindle. The film The Krays brought them cult status and new money-making opportunities. One of their most successful scams was celebrity parties billed as charity events. It was an attempt to give the three Kray brothers a Robin Hood image as they extracted money from hero-worshipping groupies.
I've got £80 from the lady down the bottom there.
You get your tickets printed and you've got a long list of, I call them plastic gangsters. These are people that are fanatics with the Krays, and believe me, there's a lot of them. Once you've sent all the invitations out to them type of people, you've got to now get some media coverage and decide who's coming to the party, meaning famous people. Now, to do this, what we did, we'd go to the prison and say, right, Reg, who can we get there today? He'd turn around and say, right, Shane Ritchie's come to visit me a couple of weeks ago, there's his number, give him a bell. So you'd ring up Shane Ritchie, bingo, he turns up. Take a nice little video shot of him doing a little auction for Reggie Kray, and all these people are mad on Shane Ritchie, you know.
Some of the parties I attended, some of the charity events, I met some fabulous people, some great characters. There was one pub in particular I went to. Everybody had a crazy story to tell. And it reminded me, because I'd just done a documentary about Elvis at Graceland, and I attended a similar party in Graceland where they were talking about Elvis, and they were talking about Reggie and Ronnie exactly the same way. I remember when Reggie did this. Oh, he was lovely, yeah.
Celebrities meant nothing to these people, to the twins. I mean, they didn't realise that these guys normally worked for a fee. People like John Altman, Nasty Nick of EastEnders, people like Nigel Benn, people like Ross Kemp of EastEnders. They were divorced from reality there. They were living in a bubble. They thought these people would just do as they asked. And, surprisingly, they did.
They turn up for nothing. I think they must get a buzz out of being around these type of people. But the ones that would want paying are the infamous gangsters from the 60s that run with Reg in the East End, that are still around today. They wouldn't, even Reggie's brother Charlie, he wouldn't turn up at one of these parties unless he was getting his palm, like, sorted with a bit of cash, you know? And sometimes I used to laugh at them, like, want to cut £100 out to turn up. Like, we'll take it up with Reg. Well, Reg knows this. And if you don't have Charlie Kray there, now the fans ain't going to buy the tickets. They want to see a Kray. So the Krays turn up, you get the fans. You get the fans, you get the money. So you've got to pay Charlie. When Charlie turns up, you've got the money from the tickets.
Charlie was never one to turn his nose up at a free drink or a £5 note or a £10 note. He dined out, obviously, and why not? Many, many, many times over the years. Charlie was a lovely man. He always had a smile, always had a glass of scotch, always told you what you wanted to hear about the twins. I took the crumbs off the table. And let me say this, not an insubstantial amount of crumbs. He really lived a life. He was a nice man. But the twins were making serious money at this time, very serious money.
Reg was always on the ball. He wanted the money as soon as he could get it. That was either send it to him in recorded delivery envelopes, special delivery next day, say he got it the next day, or he'd ask you to take the money direct yourself to the prison, which could be quite a lot of money, like £1,000, £2,000, and you take it in, and he would never directly take the money off you. He'd have another prisoner there on another table, and you would give that prisoner the money, and they'd conceal it and take it back with them. And when they got back to the cells at the end of the visit, they'd obviously pass it on to Reg.
I did many charities for Reg, and I was never aware, even to this day, that money was siphoned off and went directly to Reggie. I mean, I've done charities in the past before for obviously other people other than Reggie, and where money's gone missing. And I think if there was ever any rumours that happened, I don't know if Reggie would be responsible. I think people on the outside took advantage of the whole Kray phenomenon, but so I had no experience of it happening with Reggie.
One party I did. At the end of the night, it was, I don't know, 12 o'clock, I'm divvying up the money. And someone says to me, like, how much money you made out of this, girl? And there was £3 on the table. I said, nothing. Because I knew the next morning, Reg would be on the phone and that money was going to get sent everywhere. And do you know what? Sometimes I had even had to pay for the special delivery. The press said Reggie's raised so much money for charity, Reggie's paid this to charity, Reggie's give this to charity. No money was going anywhere other than his pocket. A small percent he'd declare as this is going into the fund, as he called it. There was a young boy, I can't remember his name, from Nottingham, and he suffered from muscular dystrophy. And I think generally they did send him to Florida, but that's before I knew Reg.
I did a party in Newcastle which raised £2,100 for Terry Moran, the Burns boy. And as a result of that, Reg asked us to do a second party, basically to raise money for himself. But this was obviously something which I'd strongly disagreed with.
Ronnie and Reggie Kray said to me, well, look, you can go along there and do a raffle for your charity, but we want some money. We're broke in here, and Ronnie Kray spent money in like water in Broadmoor, buying people presents, sending money out to people, unbelievable things he used to buy in there. And I said, well, look, I'll go along and do the charity. At the moment, EastEnders was the big thing on television, and Leslie Grayson was Dirty Den. And I phoned him up and said, would you like to come along and help me? And he came along, and he bought me some big cuddly toys for the raffle. And at the end of the night, I said to Georgie Dixon and Alan Dixon, well, what are you going to give Ronnie and Reggie? And they said, they can have the money that we took on the door. Well, that's okay by me. All I knew, I had my little envelope with £1,500 in it, and that was going to Harefield Hospital. What they took on the door, what they took from tickets, I don't know, I don't care, but they had to have their money.
You've got to remember these tickets that we're sending out are like £25, £30 a throw. The money that we earn on charity events, well, we call them charity events, but that was just a cover. Or money that came in from drugs, or wherever the money came from that we got, would be sent to Ron and Reg, mainly Reg. Reg would say, look, send Ronnie 200 quid. Ronnie would send that straight out to one of his boys, as he called them, his little boys, and Reg would pay his male friends, his young male friends in Maidstone, and for sexual favours.
He kept it himself in the closet in them days. I was there a little while before he came out sideways, if you like. I saw it come out sideways, approached me for sex, and as much as that I was cutting his hair, and I was standing in my shorts and everything, and I was cutting his hair, and he then stroked the back of my leg with his hand. But to his surprise, I grabbed the scissors and I went for him.
More than once, Reg was given an official warning by the prison authorities to stay away from young offenders. At one point, he became so concerned about his own sexual activities that he underwent an AIDS test. It proved negative.
His, let's call it, gay activities were something that he wanted to keep quiet. One way of keeping those activities quiet was to give presents, favours, a gold watch, a new suit. And that kind of thing through the years cost Reg Kray a lot of money. And again, Reg always needed a source of money to pay people off.
He told me that he's had a relationship with a boy, and this young boy is threatening to tell the whole story to News of the World for a substantial amount of money, and that I must stop this happening. So he wants me to travel all the way to Ranby prison and, under duress, make this kid sign an affidavit, and it listed a number of things. And it said underneath it, if any of the above has been given to any national newspaper, all the above was only for financial gain to myself, and all of it is untrue. He says, well, get up the prison and sort this kid out. This kid comes out, sits down, like, right drippy little looking kid. He should have been dealt with like a lot of other people Reg dealt with, but you see, Reg had a soft spot for him. And I had to sit there and tell this kid, if any of this got into the national press, it'd get really hurt. Now, when I say really hurt, I mean really hurt. And this kid understood what we was telling him in that prison that day.
It's all off. The chap is not going to go through with it. Neither ever will he. It will not come up again. You will not hear another thing of or about the nonce from Notts. He's been taken care of.
Reg was over the moon. Great, he can't do nothing now, and if he does, I've got this now, and if anything comes out in the papers, I can react to it.
He was very much a closet homosexual, whereas Ron was a little more blatant. He confessed to being bisexual, I think, at the age of 19. Shocked his family, rigid, I'm told.
Well, he had a great attraction towards young men, Ronnie, but they had to be extremely young and extremely handsome. And he had several in Broadmoor. One, I had to go to Denmark Street, which, as you know, is called the Music Street, with £150 in an envelope, and I had to buy a guitar. And I thought, well, what have I got a guitar for, Ronnie? And he used to say, it's for Charlie. Charlie in here, he's my friend, and winked to me, and I said, where is he? And he said, 3 tables over there, and I'd look, and I'd see this handsome, beautiful young boy. He said he's learning to play the guitar, and I want to surprise him for Christmas. He was sitting with his mother, this kid. His name's Charlie Smith, and you see, I presumed that that was a lover, or a would-be lover, at the time. So along I go to Denmark Street and buy this beautiful guitar, which was a lot of money, you know, 20 years ago, £150 for a guitar, and they'd have to parcel it all up and send it to Broadmoor. I wonder what they thought in the end, you know, to Ronnie Kray, care of Broadmoor, and a beautiful guitar. But I'd be sent out to buy excellent, unbelievable stuff, you know, cashmere sweaters at Christmas for this Charlie Smith, beautiful watch, underwear. Had to have Calvin Klein underwear.
Reggie's demands were entirely different. Alcohol was top of his list.
Every master brewer in the jails I was in with him, they all had a special brew down for Reg. Good customer. Always paid cash. Prison booze is dangerous. It's made with some very dodgy ingredients, but it is powerful stuff. He used to carry it by the gallon, you know, great big bucket full. Past the screws, and they'd go, hello, Reg, and look the other way. They, you know, let him get away with blue murders he did.
If it wasn't made in jail like prison hooch, the screws bought the drink in for us. Paid handsomely for it as well, they were. I mean, for a £10 bottle of scotch, we'll have to give a screw 30 quid.
Reg had a screw in every nick that would, you know, that was available to do things for him.
If me and Reg got a bottle of scotch from a screw, we'd go behind their door and we'd wedge the door up so no one can come in.
The relaxing of prison regulations under a new liberalisation policy in the 80s enabled drink, drugs and phone cards to be smuggled in on a regular basis to buy favours for Reg and his close friends.
It was quite funny to go on a visit to Reg because a lot of the time the people who I went with would take in alcohol for Reg. You know, a medicine bottle probably with scotch concealed somewhere on that person. And, you know, the added bonus that the prison officers at Nottingham Prison tended not to check anybody, you know, very well, meant that Reg could, you know, basically get a good drink inside him. So the visits to Nottingham, Reg was usually, you know, 3 sheets to the wind by the time I left him.
The prison officers in Maidstone Prison used to give him an helping hand back to the cells there.
He had so many visitors, so many mules and carriers, that I know that large amounts of booze were smuggled in, yes. Spirits, of course, and other substances, you know.
He used to do ecstasy and cocaine in Maidstone. I remember I was over cutting his hair one day over in Maidstone, because I was in Parkhurst and in Maidstone with him, on 2 separate sentences I did. And he had a bag of Charlie, as it's called, slang name for cocaine, and it was like a bag of sugar, you know. I thought it was to start with, until he told Bradley he'd give me a couple of lines, and then they was running around on ecstasy pills, you know, but, you know, he had 30 years. He had to break it up as best way as he could.
I know he called me many times between 6 and 6:30, and he'd usually had a drink by then. Hooch, of course. And he was normally quite slurring with his speech. And he would get a little more aggressive in his tone on the telephone than he normally would. And this is his business hour, I think, between 6 and 7, where he would bark out his orders, if people could understand him. And if he was, if you like, nasty in his tone or threatening, that was the time that it would come out.
You know, there was no limits on his screaming and shouting, whether you was a day late with his letter, whether you didn't drop off a load of money or collect some money from someone like you should have done, or whether you went round and had a word with a geezer like he told you to, or didn't do it. The shouting from him was all the same. It's all straight up to volume 10.
Would you do this, please? Effing please? Do you effing mind? Kind of thing. And then he would calm down and say, right, thank you very much. I've got to go. I'm going to a party now in someone's cell. I mean, he enjoyed it. You know, it was his party.
Ron Kray died in 1995, and the underworld turned out to pay its respects. His funeral was said to be